to do here on Wednesday night. I believe that everybody that's born onto this planet is born with what we call a soul purpose, an S-O-U-L purpose. And that soul purpose isn't for you, but rather for the service of your fellow man. And when we do our events on Wednesday and this evening, the objective is to allow members of our community to be able to share their voice, what they're passionate about, what they do, what they love to do, and how they influence and change the world. And so I'm really grateful that each of you came out this evening for this wonderful event. I am grateful to have you in my home this evening. I'm also grateful for our sponsors this evening. We have several of them, from our presenters to our musicians to a wonderful company called Pure 7, which is a CBD company that if you would like some free samples, we've got that this evening, from water to CBD oil. Wanted to let Marcelo quickly come up and talk, and I'm going to also pull up our dessert sponsor in a minute, Scott, to talk about his wonderful Diablo churros, and then we'll get going for the evening. But Marcelo, come on up. We've got some great CBD oil. Again, our objective with these events is to allow our members, by the way, membership is free, to be able to share what they are most passionate about and what they do. Marcelo, if you want to say a couple of quick words.
Okay, so you guys, how many of you have heard of CBD before? Isn't that crazy? If I were to ask that question a year and a half ago, you know how many hands I would get up? Maybe one. And it's amazing, because if I would have asked 1,000 people, I would probably have one person out of 1,000 know what it is. What's interesting is there's a reason why CBD and stem cells are the two biggest things people are talking about these days in medicine. It's because they work. It really actually is helping people out. Oh, sorry. I got to talk into this. Dan, come on up. So Dan is a doctor, and he owns a clinic. Well, he's a clinic. But he actually owns a stem cell clinic, and he's one of the owners of CBD 7. When it comes to CBD, there's a lot of junk out there, and I'm going to give you just a one-minute version just to save time. But what happens with CBD is a lot of people are selling, about 80–90% of them out there are selling what's called CBD isolates, where they take CBD out of the plant, and it actually sterilizes the CBD, makes it not work very well, and it has a very, very poor absorption rate. What we've been able to do is something totally different than anything in the market. And as you know, CBD is super healthy. I give it to my daughter, 18 months old, at night before she goes to bed. It's not something where you can get high on. It makes helps, if you understand the endocannabinoid system of the body, helps regulate memory, helps with memory, anxiety, pain, movement disorders, a whole bunch of things, and I can go on and on and on. There's probably about 100 different things that people are getting help from with the endocannabinoid system. Well, the problem with CBD is that a lot of times it can't get absorbed into the body because the liver can't break down oils. Okay? What we have here is we have a technology that we acquired about 10 years ago with a group of scientists out of Europe who studied the liver and tried to figure out how does the liver break down oils. And they found out that they break it down into 22 nanometer size little spherical pieces of water that can get through the intestines. And then they figured out how to do that. Well, we acquired that. And we're the only ones in the world now that have the highest absorbing CBD in the world because of that. We've done 25 other oils, but now we're doing CBD, and our company's growing very quickly. Yeah, so it's a legal CBD. We're doing it here in Utah, okay? We're doing it here in Utah, and at the same time, we're working with the legislature on it. I mean, that tells you a little bit with, and also the, what's it called? I'm going blank. The Department of Agriculture. Yeah.
They're the ones that regulate it here in Utah.
Exactly. So that's what we have. We gave out some waters earlier. Did anybody not get one? Okay. Who else? Anybody not get one? I mean, we do a tincture. And if you guys ever want a really good price for it, usually it's $120 a bottle. I always tell Michael's friends that I'll get you guys wholesale for it. And so just don't abuse that. Okay, and I'll help you guys out. Go ahead and say a little bit, and I'll get them some water.
Well, what's really interesting, how many of you guys in this room, I know there's some viewers that might be watching us as we're streaming here, or watch us later. I'm not sure how that all works here, but both. So welcome. But as we were talking earlier, there's a lot of people that are in the healthcare profession or actually are just really good about knowing about health and wellness of themselves. And one of the things that's very interesting is when we talk about CBD or we talk about hemp, well, how many of you take other things like echinacea? You heard of that? Dandelion root. milk thistle. These are all herbs. Cannabis is an herb. We've really gone and unfortunately cannibalized it, and we've really stereotyped it. And really, when the cannabis comes into it, it has a little bit less THC or a little bit more THC, correct? THC is the psychoactive component of cannabis. And the reason why I say that is that it's a misnomer. People don't understand. Hemp is 3% THC or under dry weight, meaning that when they pull the plant, that's what it is. It cannot get you high. CBD is actually, when you hear medical marijuana, it's actually the medical side of the marijuana. Marijuana is anything over 3%. We nicknamed that part of the plant, and that's where we've kind of, unfortunately, bastardized it over time. Does that make sense? So with hemp being a plant like that, it's actually a remediary plant, meaning that it will take toxins out of the soil into the plant. So a lot of times when people are taking CBD, it's like any other vitamin. Is it good? Is it not as good? Are we getting delivery of that, or not? So that's where our CBD is completely different from everybody else's. You're actually getting 85% absorption versus, like what Marcelo was saying, usually only 3%. So that's where it's different. So people need to know what type of CBD they're getting, whether it's an isolate form, which is just a powder, which you just actually fairy dust sprinkle into a carrier oil like a hemp seed oil, or into olive oil, or into a coconut oil, and they call it CBD. That's really not what you need. They need full spectrum CBD, meaning you're getting all of it the way nature intended. You're getting all the good omegas, you're getting selenium, you're getting A's, you're getting all these other things, the terpenes, the flavonoids, all those work hand in hand. So that's what's super important. That's what's different about our product. So hopefully that helps a little bit more.
Exactly. It tastes pretty good, huh?
It tastes great. In fact,
no oily
after. You don't see an oil in there.
Yeah.
Oil and water don't mix. When you hold that up, here, can you throw me yours? I'll just show it on.
That right there is an oil. This CBD oil, but there's no oil you can see in there. 22 nanometers wide. That thing is, they're so tiny. Yeah, exactly, a little foamy. But that CBD stays suspended in the water. You can't see that with other CBDs. And so that's what it is. Thank you for the time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, because this is a private event, and I am maybe not as organized as I should be in front of two other mics, what I'd like to do, just as a matter of order of operations tonight, is I'd like to bring up our presenters for the evening, then bring up our performer, then I'm going to bring up Scott from Diablo Churros to talk about his company and about the churros that he's going to be giving us this evening. And I will tell you, they are the best churros I have ever had. I choose not to eat a lot of sugar and other such things, but I will always eat these churros because they are absolutely amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Dr. Young. I want to call him Dr. Lee. I'm working on a project for the Bill Gates of China, who's Dr. Lee. So I'm calling everybody Dr. Lee. I was talking about Sandra Fan yesterday. I kept calling her Sandra Lee because I keep thinking about my client, Dr. Keifu Lee. But I'm going to bring up Dr. Young. I'm going to bring up Heather. I believe her last name is pronounced Wdowin. And what they're going to talk about is the 5 critical things in life that create inflammation. And as most of us know, most disease come from inflammation. And so they're going to talk about what those 5 areas are and what to do it. And when they're done, we're going to have some amazing music by Belle Jewel. She's going to come up. She was a contestant on The Voice, and she has absolutely an amazing voice. I think she should have gone a lot farther than she did. And she's going to present. And then we're going to bring up, as I said, Scott, talk about his churros. We'll break, have some of those churros, and come back. And Heather's going to talk through, with Dr. Steve Young, some of the results from the scanning that was done earlier, and talk about some blood work and some other practical applications of the theoretical things that they're going to share with you now. So let's bring up Dr. Young and Heather and let them go from there.
Okay. All right. So I did promise many of you an interpretive dance. So I was mentally rehearsing back there, right? So if I want to sum up my interpretive dance that summarizes my talk, here it goes. Thank you. Yes. So, I know that was amazing. So, one of the topics I'll be discussing is what are the main root causes of systemic inflammation. And this is really important because systemic inflammation, if you look at the research, since about 2014, we now know is one of the fundamental root causes of almost all illnesses. Right? So, any steps that you can take to reduce your systemic inflammation is like saying taking direct steps to reduce some of the root causes of illnesses, right? So who here does not want to have an illness? Raise your hand. Right, so I figured. So, but before I get to that, I will discuss a little bit about the antioxidant testing because I know some of you are freaking out about your tests. I figured let's put you at ease so you don't stress out the whole time while I'm talking, and then I'll cover the root causes. And I think how we'll do it is some of you may have your possibly blood work data, and I would love to have you just like connect with Heather, Dr. Wdowin, and kind of look at some of that data, because I think when Heather comes up, one of the things I was thinking is we can do is almost like a case study if you guys and girls want to discuss like specific health cases. You'll get to experience what I believe is real medicine, where we can actually detect and look at what are some of the root causes of some of the symptoms that you may be experiencing. Right, so Heather, do you want to do a little?
So systemic inflammation that Steve's going to go into as far as all of the different places where it can come from. And if you look from the top at all of the different things that are assaulting our health and aging us and making us have pain, insomnia, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes. I mean, the air out here, actually with the particulate matter from the smoke, can actually make diabetes worse. And so we've been watching the research pretty closely for a number of years, looking at what are all of these different factors, because if you just do one thing, like take metformin for your diabetes, you're not actually addressing why you have it in the first place. And so you're never expected to get better, ever, right? And you're only going to snowball and to get worse. And so what we want to do is we want to look from the top, see what all of these different assaults are, stop inflammation, stop, hormonal issues, so that we can prevent disease before it even happens. Because heart attacks still kill more Americans than anything else. The 52-year-old head of the American Heart Association had a heart attack last fall. And they knew he was at risk. He was on all of the medications and they didn't work. He lived, thank goodness, right? But it still shows that we have so many deficiencies as far as how we're addressing things like that proactively. So we want to be more proactive.
Yeah. All right. So the antioxidant score. So many of you were scanned, and don't worry, don't be disappointed with your score. I'm a huge fan of it is what it is. And essentially antioxidants are like, whenever you breathe and you work out and you have oxygen coming into your body, as you live, there's basically cellular damage happening. It's almost like this little electron shoots off and hits a cell, and they tell two friends to go, and they tell two more friends, and you've all seen Austin Powers, and you see where that goes. And so antioxidants sort of stop that chemical reaction. It stops the cellular damage, because when that electron hits the cell, it kind of damages the DNA. It's not healthy for your cells. So antioxidants are amazing to have in your body because it slows down aging. It minimizes your risk of inflammation and illnesses and disease. And so if your score was around 20,000 or so, right now you should go snort some of the vegetables that we have. Right? Best delivery mechanism. You snort the broccoli. So, but if that is not your thing, it's my thing, you basically want to eat more fruits and vegetables, right? And so obviously you're going to get some emails from the company, probably an email or two, and they'll tell you eat more vegetables. They'll also tell you go buy their supplements. Now, if you don't want to, if you don't like vegetables, yeah, you can just order their supplements. They have a guarantee you take it, your score will increase. But I'm a huge fan of get what you need from food, right? Because the food has so many so many benefits. And we can touch upon later if there's time. There's even tests that you can take to know what fruits and vegetables are helpful for you versus what fruits and vegetables can actually harm you, right? So we have that data. Like broccoli is amazing, but broccoli is not for everyone. There are certain fruits and vegetables that may be causing you systemic inflammation if you eat it, a lot. Which is why sometimes if you talk to people who are like, oh, I just went on this new diet, and I started eating this diet plan, actually feel worse. It could be that when they switch their foods to these, fruits and vegetables that's recommended on whatever name diet is, it could be that those fruits and vegetables are pro-inflammatory for that individual. Right? And so just so you know, we now have the science to basically test and know everything about your body to figure out what's helpful for you versus what's harmful, what may be happening in your body that's stopping your body from healing. Right? We are designed or evolved, depending on which camp you're in, to heal. Right? So if you are not healing, there's something stopping your body from healing. And to me, the ideal medicine of the future is being able to identify those obstacles of healing and just removing those obstacles, right? Does that make sense? And so if you scored around 30, high 30s, many of you were like 37,000 in that range, it's pretty good. You want to get above 40,000 on that test, right? So like I said to someone, you just basically want to eat like a serving of vegetable extra a day can push you over the edge. And the key to me in terms of sustainable health isn't a bunch of major changes. The key to success in life and anything is just like little things done consistently, right? So just pick some little vegetable, right? Like even without any testing, pick something with color that came from the ground, right? So if my interpretive dance was too vague, you didn't realize, I was actually opening up a package and sticking my hand in the package and eating that thing, then I died. And so because if the food has been in a package, more than likely it's been poisoned. Right, and I'll touch upon that in a second. Right, and so basically you want to eat like stuff that's been from the ground, it's never been through a machine, and that has some color. Right, like Skittles doesn't count because it's been through a machine. And so if you can eat that, like you're going to be. Skittles are awesome though. Once in a while, you taste the rainbow. And so, right, so fruits and vegetables, right, super simple. And some of you, if you scored, like a few of you were in the 20,000s. It just means you want to eat a little bit more fruits and vegetables. Some of you scored really well. You were in the 50s, and someone had 70. The winner, yes, it has actually nothing to do with fruits and vegetables. If you're Asian, it just means you're awesome, right? So, if there's a takeaway, yes. If there's any one takeaway that you can take from today is hug an Asian. Our awesomeness will rub off on you. Just saying. Yes. Right. So I'll give free hugs. Just saying. So, but ultimately, you want to eat your fruits and vegetables, right? And so that takes care of the antioxidants.
Swap out here.
Okay.
You turn yours off.
Range. So I feel like a singer now. What was that? Oh, got it. So if you're below that, so if your antioxidant. Oh yeah, I did promise to shame all the people that were low. Thank you. What the hell? Get your antioxidants up, women. No, if you're below, it just means that your body's ability to contain some of the cellular damage and the inflammation is a little less than if you were Asian. Right. That's the takeaway. Yes. Right. As long as it's natural tar, I guess that hasn't been through a machine.
Does that have anything to do with, like, if you're eating vegetables that have a higher glycemic, the absorption of the actual nutrients in it? So, like, say somebody's eating something that in the morning they're doing, like, bananas or mangoes or something, and so obviously the absorption rate will be lower because high glycemic, so it spikes blood sugar, creating trauma in the body. So I wonder if that
Yeah, for sure. You know how they say like you are what you eat? In reality, it is you are what you're absorbing. And so there, when you get to absorption, and maybe depend upon potentially like the case that we go through, we can talk about absorption. Like we literally, I mean, we could talk about this for like days, right? And so when it comes to absorption, there's a lot of variables, right? Like what the biome that's happening, how inflamed or leaky your gut is. There's a lot of variables that affect absorption. So yes, there's an absorption component to it. Yeah.
There's also a huge toxicity component. And so the more toxic you are, the more exposure you have, the faster you're going to burn through the antioxidants. And there's also a significant genetic component as well, all of which we can test.
Yeah.
But it really goes to show, like, if you eat a lot of vegetables, I'm not really talking about iceberg lettuce, right? But if you do eat a lot of dark-skinned berries and a lot of beautiful colors and you're still having a low status, then that usually means there's other onslaughts that are hitting you that you don't necessarily know, whether it's toxicity, it's stress, it's absorption, you know. There's lots of different things that could be, you know, causing that.
And a lot of that gets confused for like celiacs, right? Is that a whole other topic?
Yeah, it's a whole other topic.
Well, so I don't actually think celiac comes from wheat per se. I think it's because the wheat is absolutely inundated with glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Roundup, which has been shown to kill off your microbiome and your flora in your gut, making it more likely for you to have celiac, Crohn's disease, C. diff, salmonella. And so, yeah, so it's complicated. Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. Yep.
Yeah, most people that think they're gluten intolerant are just really Monsanto intolerant. So. Right. Pretty much. Yeah, so they've gone under Bayer, so they're trying to hide their brand because people are wising up to Monsanto, for sure.
We just had a lawsuit that settled for $278 million, I think, for a lawn worker that was sprayed with Roundup and he got lymphoma from it. Yeah. And
So my
he
dad
just
was a
got paid off.
protester and died from multiple myeloma all over his whole body at 60.
Yeah.
So that's a really good example of the effects that toxicity can have. And that's why it's so important to address that the best that you can, because you can't go live in a bubble, right?
Maybe just swapping it for like organic,
It's
fruits and
better.
vegetables, the absorption rate would even be higher.
Of,
Like if you're eating those fruits
Probably.
and vegetables, like how much your
Yeah.
body would be able to respond.
and so it's not perfect, but it's certainly a good step.
Yeah, and so that's a good segue. I can talk about sort of what are the 5 main, I mean, there are a lot, but let's just try to chunk it down to like 5 main ones. So the 5 main root causes of chronic systemic inflammation, the way I look at it is at the very top, it's your relationship to stress. Not your stress level, but your relationship to stress, which I'll get to. And so underneath of that is going to be your gut health, the chemicals or the toxins that are coming into your body, which is like glyphosate and other things, which I talk about. And then there's sleep quality and amount. And then there's food, like we talked about. Some foods can be harmful for you and some foods can be helpful for you. And so those 5 are the main root causes of inflammation. And so I'm going to go over each one a little bit more in detail, but keep in mind that one of the things I want to do is make sure that there's some type of actionable that's happening from this, right? I don't want this to be like, oh my God, that was a lot of information. He was funny. That was cool. I am funny. So you want to make sure you act on this. Oh, that's your Asian, awesome Asian genes, by the way. And so I want to make sure there's actionables, right? And so I know so many people who try to improve their health through all these tips and tactics and hacking and all kinds of stuff, but it's done through this process where they're actually more hyper-vigilant and almost stressed out about this, right? And so I'm going to talk about how do you achieve some of this while actually developing a better relationship to stress, right? What's the path of being healthy that does not involve a path of actually more stress, if that makes sense, right? So that's what I see in the mass market. There's a lot of like, you should be doing this and you should be doing this, and people are becoming so hyper vigilant about all these it could be, sort of very confusing tips and tricks. And so I try to chunk it down to like 5 things. These are the 5 main things. And so I'll start with sleep. It's probably the simplest one of them all. So some of the easiest tactical things that you can do to improve your sleep. In fact, before I give it, how many of you sleep you feel like adequately? Got it. And so how many of you feel like you could be sleeping either in higher quality or higher amounts. Got it, right? And so probably one of the easiest thing that you can do to improve your sleep is just wear like blue light blocking glasses 2 hours before you want to go to bed. I mean, ultra ideally, like you get off the electronics, but blue light blocking glasses, like $12 on Amazon. You don't have to get the pretty ones for like $50. You can get the dorky ones. They're $12 on Amazon, and it will make a huge difference in your sleep quality. And some actionable things that you could do would be the Oura Ring is a great bio tracker that you can buy, OURA. And so the cool thing about the Oura Ring is, you know, they talk about like what you measure, you improve. It's the best sleep tracker out there right now. And so it's going to give you data and hold you accountable. It gives you like a sleep score. When you wake up, you can look at how well or not well that you know your sleeping quality. And I wore for like a year and a half, and it really just having that number kept me accountable. Like I set a like internal goal of keeping my score 85 or above, and it for sure really helped me be accountable to that and help me figure out what variables improve that score. Like,
What about those with sleep apnea?
yeah, so maybe when it comes to actual pathology, what we can do is we can turn into case study discussions when Heather goes up afterwards. Yeah, for sure. Okay, and so sleep, that's an easy one. Blue light blocking glasses and Oura Ring, right? So when it comes to, we'll talk about maybe gut health next. So gut health, most people don't realize that when, let's say in the last 2 years, who has taken any non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like Advil, naproxen, ibuprofen, and stuff in the last 2 years? How many of you in the last 2 years have also taken antibiotics? Okay, some of you. Okay, yeah, and so some of these most commonly prescribed drugs can do a serious number on your gut health. Right, and so, you know, most of you know, like if you take some of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, it upsets your stomach. Well, what it's really doing is it inflames your stomach lining, and the best way that I can put it is it's like putting holes in your intestines, and your intestines then leaks poop out into the rest of your body. Now you have like poop particles in your heart, you have poop particles in your lung, you have poop particles in your brain, and your body's kind of like, I'm not supposed to have poop in these areas. And so, and just in case you didn't realize, you're not supposed to have poop in your lungs, in case you didn't know, right? And so literally just shit everywhere. And then so your body starts to attack itself, right? So it knows this is a foreign substance in this space, and you start to get inflammation, right? So inflammation is like the healing response. It's the first phase of healing. And and I don't want to give inflammation a bad rep. Like if you sprain an ankle and your ankle gets inflamed, it's amazing. It's part of the healing process. It's if you after you sprain an ankle every day, you hit it with a hammer 5 times because you're weird, and you keep doing that for like 6 months, and it's not helpful, right? And so many of us don't realize that we're inadvertently hitting ourselves with a hammer every single day. And so we want to be able to identify these inadvertent things and then remove them. And so if you want to improve your stomach health, the tactical thing, I just made it super simple. I have like a protocol on my website. It's just, and I'll send it out to everyone, just bodysolutionsinc.com/gut. Right? So there's some specific nutrients, if you look at the research, like colostrum combined with zinc carnosine together, it's amazing to plug those holes so you don't keep leaking poop everywhere, right? Just keep in mind you're not supposed to have poop in your body elsewhere. In zinc carnosine. The entire protocol is on the website in terms of how much to take, what to take, and then the probiotic and everything. Yep. So I just made it super simple. That's a simple actionable. And then, so next is going to be food, right? And so probably the best thing, I think every human can benefit from getting some type of food sensitivity testing. It's the only way to really discover what foods are healing versus what foods are harming you. Like literally, you could be eating foods on a regular basis. Like I know when I was tested, broccoli, garlic, mushrooms, those are the big 3 because I ate them all the time, were on my severe list. What that meant was when I ate those foods, it makes me severely inflamed. Right? Every time I eat those foods, and I used to eat mushrooms like 6 days a week, and garlic, I put garlic on everything. It's like that, what's that hot sauce, like put that shit on everything? Like I put garlic on everything, right? And so on a regular basis, it was making me inflamed. And I got that test years ago, actually, when I talked to my friend Tom. I was like, getting like tons of aches and pains everywhere, and it wasn't from like working out hard, it wasn't from anything else, like nothing changed, it wasn't like more stressed. And so when I had the results back, for sure I was eating all these things, and literally just by cutting out those foods, probably within 2 weeks the aches and pains went away. I mean, I wasn't trying to lose weight, but I lost like 4 pounds just because all the swelling in my cells decreased, right? So the test is called ALCAT, A-L-C-A-T, right? So imagine a cat named Al. That's how our brains work, right? So meow, right? So that's the test. Yeah, there are a few companies. And so really, the most comprehensive way is you get multiple tests and you cross-reference. That's the most comprehensive. Meow. Yep, ALCAT. Yep. Right, and so for sure, if you want the most comprehensive way, and we can talk about that really when we get into pathology, you get a few tests and you cross-reference. But for simple, like if you just like one thing, ALCAT, for sure.
Is that like an allergy test?
So it's different in an allergy. Like when you eat a food that you're allergic to, your body makes something to actually attack the food.
Right.
This is you eat the food, there's nothing being made to attack it, but your cells swell up.
So is this like does it give like a rating of like 1, 2, or 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question on that actually, because I had that done.
Okay.
And I was like allergic to everything.
Yep.
Like, and some of them have
Mm-hmm.
So. and
What does
then
that mean?
Well,
It's-
they're
yep.
like grenades, right?
Yep.
The number 3s.
Yep.
So like, yeah, so I could talk about it after, but I'm
Sure.
just kind of curious because I had that done once and it was very interesting. So like, is that, like someone was telling me that can show that you have leaky gut or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the simple answer I usually give to people when you see a lot of things on your severe list or a lot of things on the 3, it's either God hates you or you probably have something going on with your body, which is,
Right.
leaky gut.
Because I mean, they were like healthy items.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
garlic and mushrooms are amazing and broccoli's amazing, but for me, because I ate crap tons of it, and so so ideally you want to rotate your foods. Right? Just think about how unnatural it is for us to be able to eat the same foods year round. In the history of time, it's a very short period of time in human history that we're able to eat apples year round, because prior to 1,000 years ago, we couldn't eat apples year round. It was like in season or out of season. So it's very unnatural for our cells to be able to consume the same foods. And 2, there used to be, there are 1,000 varieties of apples. Now there's in the supermarket like 4 to 5. So even in potatoes, there's like 1,016 varieties of potatoes. There's like 3 to 4 maybe in the supermarket. So our variety of food has decreased dramatically in the last 1,000 years. And so it's very unnatural. So you want to make sure that you rotate your foods ideally, right? Try not to eat the same foods.
So I have a quick, you can probably see it because I'm wearing a dress. My leg was almost ripped off in a car accident about 20 years ago. And they told me I probably wouldn't keep it and I would certainly never ski again, bike, backpack, or anything, right? And I was really lucky to be able to heal it, and that's how I came into functional medicine, was because they were like, well, we saved your leg, thank God. Like I wouldn't have been able to keep it without surgeons, but they never expected me to be better. And as I started getting into my later 30s, the pain of it was it was outrageous. Like I was in chronic pain all the time. It was making me grumpy. And I was like, I can't live like this. And I'd had prolotherapy and massage and yoga and all of this other stuff. And so I ran this ALCAT test, and it said I was sensitive to turkey, cauliflower, coffee, chocolate. And I'm like, bullshit, right? Like there's no way I'm sensitive to chocolate. That's just, God does not hate me that much, right? My husband's like, please, we ran the test, would you please just adhere to it? So I did it for 2 weeks, and I haven't had to do any sort of pain management for that injury since. Because I don't eat turkey. If I eat turkey, I feel like I got hit by a bus. So nothing was shifted, right? Like nothing got mysteriously healed, right? So I still have all that low-grade damage, but because my inflammation levels are lower, I don't feel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just again, it's like taking away a thing that was impeding the body from healing, right? So our bodies do have amazing abilities to heal as long as we give it that healing environment, right? And so that's, to me, that's like real medicine. Like current medicine is nothing like that, right?
Yeah,
so
take
current
a
medicine
Vicodin
is
and Valium
you have
until the
this
end of
symptom
time.
that matches with this drug. You take this drug for the rest of your life. That there's a infinitely better system, right? We can test. I was just telling so many people, we can test for over like 4,000 different chemicals points in your body right now. Your traditional regular doctor will test about 20 and base their entire diagnosis and figuring out of you on less than 5% of the data.
Is there a place that we can go to see what tests you recommend and get tests for you?
There are a lot of tests. Yeah, I guess we can talk about that maybe.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, for sure, like if someone were like, look, I want one step to know everything about my body, to make sure I'm the most healthy, to make sure I decrease my risk of all illnesses, there's a whole process for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we mapped it out to be like 17 tests, and you can know everything. We could collect all that data. So yeah, so I can just tell you the raw cost of those tests with no, like that's not even including like the shipping, handling, and all that stuff. Just like how much we pay for the labs was $4,650.
What if you did it in mass? Like, what if you did it for our clients before they ever started? Like, so we were doing it in one facility all the time.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, so that's one of the first
Yeah.
questions I asked was like if we
There's negotiation.
there's some moving points,
Yeah.
right? And so then again, that's like once you get the data, the next step is getting a super brain to then look at it and decipher all that data and make sense of it, right? And so for sure, we have that process, and it's something we can talk about. So yeah. All right. Yeah, I doubt it.
No, I've seen a couple run it actually, which is great, but insurance doesn't usually cover it. If you have someone that does functional medicine then and they're prepared to like read it and educate you about it, there are some out there, but otherwise, like if you want to send me, I think that we had the event, I'm tagged on Facebook, so if you want to private message me about any of these tests and like ways to
I know
go, then
people.
that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that's food, right? So at least get the ALCAT test, right? Because it will make a huge difference. Because this way you can just make healthy, everyday decisions on, maybe cherry tomatoes versus
Right.
instead of avocados, like super simple stuff,
Right.
right? Because so many programs out there are just like shotgun generic, like the just eat more greens. It's not that simple, right? Like we're all humans. Granted, Asians are a little bit more awesome. So, but we all have very different genes, very different chemistry, very different, so many things. Biome, like our bacteria, like if I were to, take your poop, which would be disgusting, and we tested it, we would find very different strains of bacteria, right? And so we live in an age where everything can be customized right now, but the masses are still being exposed to just a very outdated system. If you think about it real quick, the test that your doctors are running, it's the same test they've been running for like 30 years. Like, just think how far we've come technologically in the last 30 years. Anything that's like even 10 years old is pretty outdated.
I just wanted to know where you were at with fecal microbiome transplants, and if that's something that you,
Yeah.
because it's not legal to do here, but it's got to be one of the most.
Yeah, so literally one man's shit is another man's treasure is for sure.
So I
Yeah.
have several friends who have like Crohn's disease, or
Right.
like somebody that has C. diff because they've had gout for a long time, but you can't get it done anywhere unless you go to Mexico or
Yeah.
go to Canada.
So you can always, so there's a difference between trying to just like put your finger in a hole, right, and plug it up versus fixing it. And so usually that's like a last step. So I know that there's places in Oregon that actually can do it. And so it's not illegal everywhere, but usually if you don't understand the workings of how you got there in the first place, it can just come right back. And so that's why we want to make sure that we address those other pieces so that the body's more receptive to any interventions that we do.
Yeah, there's a process where you figure out, because there's so many things that can be done, like are we treating symptoms or root cause?
Right.
Right, because a fecal transplant could still just be a symptom treater and not
Right.
a root cause treater. That's the key. The key is, to me, medicine ideally is, sure, we do things to address your symptoms right away. You get the quick wins,
Right.
but then we're obviously addressing root causes, right? Ideally, that's, to me, ideal medicine.
I know, but have you gotten into the gut yet?
A little bit.
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna stop asking questions. I'm so sorry, y'all. It's okay. I just have a question and some of it kind of, anyway. Have you seen, just because of some of the talk that we've had, I'm wondering, have you seen a lot of, I know
Poop?
there's been studies done.
I've seen a lot of shit.
I'm sure. But I'm talking more about the stomach now, because you're also saying how it'll strip down, things in the stomach and in the intestines. So there's been a lot of psychological studies done on the gut, where they're now saying that the gut is really the first brain, and then the brain the second brain. of the
Yeah.
body. And I'm just curious your thoughts on how that works, because if the gut is not in restorative condition, I feel like that's going to affect every other thing in the body in general.
Yeah.
And sometimes even things like gout may not even be gout. It could actually be something else from inflammation and other things like that.
Yeah, the protocol that I have goes over that a little bit. And so I feel like on one hand, we literally, that's another, this is like we could do a whole nother, we could do like a 4-hour discussion on this.
I was debating whether or not to bring that up, but.
How dare you? No, what I try to give is like, you just go and fix it, right? You just go and address the gut, and then it'll make a big difference.
And
Yeah.
how, like, have you seen psychological issues that have come through in your office? And what have you seen as the outcome? Like, what kind of thing did they have?
I mean, decrease anxiety. I mean, we've had MS patients just doing a simple free gut protocol. One patient went from 90% of the time walking with a cane to only 20% within 3 weeks. She's had the MS for 12 years. So you can see tremendous differences when you start to unblock the body's process of healing. So,
That's good to know.
PTSD, anxiety, depression, even like schizophrenia, bipolar.
yeah.
I mean, anything. If you think, we talked about how those, the gut is supposed to keep the poop in the poop, poop chute rather than everywhere. So the membranes that are, lining the gut are also, it's like there's the gut barrier and then there's the blood-brain barrier. And if your gut barrier is compromised, your blood-brain barrier is probably compromised as well, which isn't protecting from the inflammation and can cause all kinds of damage.
Right? Well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to the last
Autism.
of the 5, which is
that.
your relationship to stress, right? And so this is a little bit more nebulous, just because most people, especially in the self-help world, there's a lot of language patterns, a lot of framing of reality in terms of how we relate to stress, such as high stress versus low stress, as if stress is this measurable amount. The way I see it is, it's really just a relationship, because stress is not good or bad innately, right? Like when you go to work out, it's a stress for your body, and then with enough rest, your body adapts to that stress. It becomes more resilient and stronger. It's the same thing with psychological. Your first day at work, that mental stress is a certain relationship, and obviously after a month of that, it's not the same response, right? So you become mentally more resilient. But what I'm really saying is, like, how do you frame your relationship to stress? And so some people, and so I have a worksheet on this. If you guys want, if you just private message me on Facebook, just don't stalk me and check out my profile. I will send you that information. And so I have a whole worksheet that helps you ask the questions to develop a certain type of relationship to stress, right? So because this would have been like a 5-hour talk if I were to go through everything. I try to give like simple tools that you can just use to make it actionable for you, right? And so I would highly recommend messaging me. I'll send it over. There's no spam emails. There's no follow-up. I'll just me manually sending it to you, and just walk through the worksheet, and there's just specific questions you can use to develop, right? And so those are the 5, and then you want to make sure that as you're doing this, you're approaching this entire path in a way that is not stressful, right? It's not like, oh my God, I'm hypervigilant, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. All of these things can be done just through simple action steps. And then, for example, like alcohol, you like get some blood drawn, and then now you can be like, all right, apples instead of oranges, right? It doesn't have to be this hypervigilant process. All right? And so what I would love to do is later on, after the amazing performance.
Also, you said 1 through 5, but I only got 3. So could you just go through the 5, like just what they were?
Well, it's Asian math, so if you get. Oh yeah, I leave some out. So toxins, right? So I didn't go over toxins yet. So toxins would be like basically chemicals coming in, and so. See, this is from the alcohol that I was drinking. So toxins coming in, most people don't realize, so here's some interesting stats. Like the average woman rubs on 141 chemicals a day. The average male is about half of that. If I were to take a drop of blood from all of your bloods, and then we tested it, we would find on average about 300 chemicals in your blood that do not belong there. That number was about 200 8 years ago. So it's increased.
Everything.
Everything, yeah. So
Yep.
unless you live in a bubble, some of it you can't help it. Like you're gonna breathe in, like the air that we're breathing in right now, the carpet, like this is for sure putting out some stuff that we're breathing in that's not favorable. This microphone, I'm sure, was sprayed and dipped in bromine, which I'm inhaling right now. It's a flame retardant, and it has to be. And so some of it's unavoidable, but some of it is. Like you could basically choose products, personal care products that are a lot less toxic. And so there's a main database. I'm sure some of you may have heard of Skin Deep. If you just Google Skin Deep, anyone? Bueller? No. So Skin Deep is a database that will tell, it's a problem identifier. You can plug in your cosmetics, your shampoo, your cleaner, and it's going to give you a number rating of how toxic it is. So I've been recommending that for like a decade. And one of the drawbacks is it tells you how toxic the thing is, but doesn't say, do this instead, right? It's like, just tells you like how awful you are and you made horrible choices. And so,
But they do have, like the Environmental Working Group that does Skin Deep, they do have EWG certified cosmetics.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've spent the last couple of years just switching out everything.
yep. So I paid an entire team to scour that database to make a separate database. My instructions were pick all the certified stuff that's the safest and recreate a database and pick the top 3 safest products that's also on Amazon Prime. Yep. So this way you can just go like click, click, right? Because now it's an easy actionable. Mm-hmm. And so that website, if you want to write it down, it's just tossouttoxicity.com. Tossouttoxicity.com, right? So simple database, go on it. You're 2 clicks away from basically the safest rated products on the Skin Deep database in its own database that's on Amazon Prime. Right, so we have toxins, we have gut, we have stress, we have food, and sleep. Food was the ALCAT. ALCAT was the solution to food. By my Chinese math, that was all 5. So.
Do you find that when people are highly toxic that they suffer from like severe migraines?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I was waiting for someone to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah. Migraines are usually toxicity or hormone imbalance.
Yeah, I think when Heather is
We could talk a lot about all
we
that
can
stuff.
talk about specific pathology stuff. I'm just here to entertain you. Yep. I am writing a book that will have some of this information plus much more. Yeah.
Me too, but
Yeah. So there will be those resources. Yeah.
I'm not Asian.
By association.
Yes.
So.
Well, I had my 23andMe done, and I actually have like a 0.03%. So
Well, there you
I
go.
think that counts. Does that count?
That does count. Yes.
Well, if you give him a hug every day.
That'll work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that definitely works. My cells will rub off on you, literally.
Okay, fixed.
Nice. If you whip out the abacus and you carry the one thing over, it does actually. Great. All right. So any other questions before I hand the mic off to a superstar? Maybe Mike.
All right.
Superstar. You want me to sing? What was that? What? No. That would not be cool. Here you go.
Thank you. I think we've actually got some sound checking to do still, so mingle among yourselves. Yeah, we haven't really sound checked yet. Yeah. Yep.
So what's up next? Should we do churros?
Yeah.
Just talk into that bright microphone.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me up there? Check 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3.
Doing a sound check.
Do you guys mind if I just say a bunch of numbers up here?
Oh yeah, go for it. So, one of the great things about our community is that we're about voice and finding and sharing voice. Voice is both about the spoken word, it can be about health, it can be about communication, speaking, or really anything. It also can be about the live performance of music. Now, we also benefit from the fact that some members of our community are also cooks and chefs. And we have an amazing dessert for you this evening. We have a company called Diablo Churros, I mentioned earlier, who has some of the very best churros in the world, not just in the city of Utah, but in the world. I'll bring Scott up. He's the founder. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the history of it. He's a friend and a sponsor for this evening. And
we're excited to be here to counter all of the talk about amazing health that we need to have, and
with churros
and like tossing out the toxicity. We're gonna give you some toxicity, I guess, maybe. So all things in moderation, though, right? So we make. I'm with San Diablo Artisan Churros. We make our churros fresh from scratch, and they are all natural and locally sourced ingredients when we can. Our dough, I didn't share this last time, but our dough has flour, butter, water, eggs, and salt, and some Mexican vanilla.
It's really quite pure. It's not full of
there's no
extra toxins or.
I sure hope not. Maybe we need to get it tested, but anyway, yeah. So, and then we deep fry them on demand, so they're hot and fresh, and then we fill them with happiness. And
what does that mean, filled with happiness?
Well, we always have our traditional filling flavors: dulce de leche, Nutella, and sweet cream.
So unlike churros that you would get at a normal churros place, you actually fill it with filling.
That is correct. Yeah.
So
fresh.
So what's
filled?
Hot, fresh, and filled. So what were the things that you fill them with again?
Yeah. So dulce de leche, which is a Mexican caramel, Nutella, and sweet cream.
And then you do seasonal stuff too, right?
And then we also always cycle through some seasonal flavors. So
what's the season?
Right now, I brought coconut cream and a key lime cheesecake.
Key lime cheesecake, all right.
Yeah.
And I think, if I recall, you do some savory ones. Not here tonight, but
yeah, we do. We just introduced several months ago. We introduced savory churros as appetizers, which takes people a little bit of time to wrap their brain around. But pulled pork, cheeses, brisket. All sorts of fun stuff. You name it, we can put it in a churro and bring you happiness.
Sure. Does it churro?
What's that?
Sounds like something southern will do.
Well, we just introduced, actually, funny enough, we just introduced a new epic shared dessert, a churro fried banana split. So we take a banana, both halves of the banana, coat each side in churro dough, deep fried banana, cinnamon sugar, 3 scoops of Rockwell artisanal ice cream, real whipped cream, real cherries on top. So
You're good?
it's basically like fruit salad. It's really good for you.
Diablo, right?
Yeah. We go where the party is. So we do special events and catering, weddings, corporate events, parties. We did her album launch party, in the wintertime. And
this is the lead mic, testing 1, 2, 3 on the lead.
So we're hitting all the food truck spots as well.
Well, you're also in Gateway too, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, we have thank you. We have pop-up locations at the Gateway Mall. We're there 2 days a week, and we're at Honeybee Grocery Store in Draper at 3 days a week. So.
And you just did your big launch party.
We had a big launch party a couple weeks ago.
Where was that?
That was at Honeybee in Draper. Yeah.
The churros that he makes, I would recommend trying all of them. Like I said, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but when I get a chance to eat his churros, I do. What's the background? How did you get into churros? I know that we can talk about
churros found me.
But how the churros found you?
Well, I lived in Mexico for a while, and I had my first filled churro in Mexico City years ago, and I just thought it would be irresponsible not to bring something that's good to America. So. It's been something in the back of my head for years and years, and I've been involved in other businesses along the way. And I'm really super passionate about is creating an amazing customer and brand experience. And so I've done that in the senior healthcare business and then in travel and tourism. We launched an all-you-can-fly membership airline out of Southern California. And now I wanted to
it was the first, as far as I know, the first membership-based airline.
subscription.
Subscription-based airline.
Yep.
That's a good idea. I don't know. Can I grab somebody's button? That'll work. It's absolutely one of the most well-known. And first, it's on. Totally. I'm echoing. But so, Churros found you, but last time you were here and spoke about it, you went into some pretty good history about both how you found churros and why churros are churros and shaped the way that they are.
Oh yeah, totally. So at our launch party, we actually had 2 live churro sheep there. So it was a little bit of a petting zoo situation. And the reason why we had it is because churros got their name from Spanish shepherds. When they first made the pastry years ago, it kind of curled and had the texture to it, so that it reminded them of the horns of the churro breed of sheep. So that's why they called it a churro. So there you go. You can throw that out in dinner conversation trivia. Do you know how churros got their name? So that's why we had the churro sheep there. So pretty fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, totally. So that's our dessert over break. We also have some rice pudding as well. So we're gonna do a.
Bell's ready to go.
Oh, Bell's ready to go. Well, let's go. Let's rock it. All right, guys, everybody, come on. Let's sit down. We're gonna listen to Bell. We're gonna do music followed by churros. If I get everybody to come back.
Me through these. 1, 2, 3, cool. So yeah, Scott brought his company and they catered my event for my pre-release concert for my album. It was at Boxcar Studios in Provo and it was so much fun. You guys seriously made the night so perfect. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay on this mic? Can you hear anything? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me now? Some creepy harmonies on there. Testing 1, testing 2, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna chat about my album a little bit in between songs. This whole album was just kind of written about just the last few years of my life, just kind of transitioning into adulthood and getting out in the world on my own and going on The Voice and moving to New York and doing a bunch of really difficult things that taught me a lot. So this first song that I'm going to be performing for you guys tonight is the song that I hate the most on the album because it takes me back to a time in my life that I hated the most. So this song was super cathartic for me to write and I feel like it helps people kind of get a perspective on what it feels like to be on reality TV for a whole year of your life and what that looks like and sounds like and hurts like. So this first song is called Velvet. Bear with us if there's any technical kinks. I hope you guys enjoy. Buy me velvet blue and green and throw me into dresses so I can't sleep. Slip into my foreign sheet, curl up with mint inside of me. I can't sleep. Waking up to room service, I'm over it. Hit the boulevard each night, it's closing in. I'm out of control and overdose and exposure. I'm out of control and overrun with no closure. I'm out of control and overdose. overdosed on exposure. I'm out of control and overwhelmed with enclosure. Looking up at palm trees in the lap of luxury we can't leave. Hiding on the silver screen, hungry for the fame, but know that we can't eat. Waking up to room service, I'm over it. Hit the boulevard each night, it's closing in. I'm out of control and overdosed on exposure. I'm out of control and overwhelmed with enclosure. I'm out of control and overdosed on exposure. I'm out of control and overwhelmed with enclosure. I'm fighting this, there's no hiding it. I'm scared no one will hear the words that I've prepared. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. Thank you guys so much. Could I get the track up a little bit in my in-ears? How's everything sounding out there? Good? Okay, sweet. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this next track. This next song is called Push, and for me it's all just about all the ups and downs that come with being an artist and kind of choosing that as your profession. I get a lot of people telling me, you should have gone back to college, you should have never decided to drop out of a full scholarship and pursue music, you should have never done this, you should have never done that. So as an artist, I really feel like the main challenge is just being confident in what you decide to do with your passions. Turning your passion into a career is kind of something that a lot of people laugh at, but it's at the same time it feels really good to be able to say I did that and I'm happy doing it. So this song is kind of what that feeling is all about. It's that push, it's that momentum of I am doing this for me and no one else. It's an incredible feeling. I hope that everyone gets to experience that someday in one form or another, because it is just, it's so liberating. To kind of counter that, I wrote a reprise to Push on my album that's called Pull. So that's the other side of being an artist. That's the lows. That's when you believe what everyone says about your bad life decisions. So that'll come later on in the album. You'll recognize some themes from this song. But for now, I hope you enjoy. This is Push.
Test this. Are we getting it now? Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. We're hot on the reverb tonight. This next song is called Bleachers, and normally my boyfriend DJs with me. Are we good up there? Everything's cool? Cool, awesome. Normally my boyfriend DJs with me, so I get to talk about him a little bit, but you guys just kind of get to know him a little bit, even though he's not here. This next track I wrote about my relationship with him and how I realized that I used to be so selfish when it came to my relationships with the people that I love. And I'm a firm believer that we never ever get rid of our flaws, we just learn how to recognize them. And not even learn how to cope, we just learn how to accept that they're a part of our personality, change them, and improve upon them. So this song is kind of written about this phase in my life where he was going back to college to be awesome and change the world and better himself. And my first thought about all of that was like, what about me? What am I going to do? Like, you can't go do cool things because then that's just going to leave me, I'm going to be all by myself. So I wrote this song to kind of give myself a slap in the face and help myself realize that that's like not a cool thing to do. So being kind of greedy with the people that I love is, I'll admit it, it's a huge personality flaw of mine. I love the people that I love, and I love them so much that I want them to be a part of my life. So this song is kind of written with me teaching myself how to cope and how to improve upon my flaws and how to recognize them. So this is Bleachers. I hope you enjoy.
If I'm lonely or I'm tired, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to the choir. If you push me to the deep end and my friends in the bleachers, that's okay, I still forgive you. You set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. Head on my shoulders, would it be cool if I lost mine? Let's take it slow, quit cutting corners all the time. 'Cause what about the others? Not gonna love you like you're mine. 'Cause what about the others? Not gonna love you like you're mine. And I see you on the weekends, but it doesn't make a difference. If I'm lonely or I'm tired, I'm preaching to the choir. Oh, I'm preaching to the choir. If you push me to the deep end with your no friends and no teachers, it's okay, I still forgive you. You set my heart on fire. You set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. And I see you on the weekends, but it doesn't make a difference. If I'm lonely or I'm tired, I'm preaching to the choir. Oh, I'm preaching to the choir. If you push me to the deep end with your new friends and the bleachers, that's okay, I still forgive you. You set my heart on fire. You set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. Oh, you set my heart on fire. Thank you guys. Normally I've got my cute DJs next to me. This is actually the first time I've ever performed my album by myself, so it's a little different. I've never done all this stuff by myself at once, so thank you guys for being such a good audience. I really appreciate it. Good, I'm glad you guys are having a good time. 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
next track I wrote about New York and how hard it is to live in. How many of you guys have ever lived in New York? You survived, dude? Are you serious? You survived New York? For me, honestly, I think it was a close call. I lived in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, which was the only area that we could kind of afford to live in at the time. I like to think of myself as a super independent person, and when my independence is kind of stripped from me, I don't know, it affects me in ways that I didn't understand until I lived in New York. I was out grocery shopping one day at 2 p.m., and this little old man came up to me and grabbed me by the shoulders, and he said, "You really shouldn't be out here by yourself. I should walk you home. You shouldn't be out here. It's not safe because you're a woman and you're white." And that, like, I grew up in Utah and Arizona, and for some reason it, like, absolutely shook me. It infuriated me that there's such a reason to be afraid. It infuriated me that there was so much misunderstanding and hate and confusion and scaredness in that area of Brooklyn, not just from myself, but from all my neighbors that I lived in that community with. So this song is just about how New York kind of kicked my butt and how it helped me grow. So this song is about my love-hate with my ex-girlfriend, Brooklyn. Brooklyn, New York. Could I get the track of a little bit in my monitors when you start this one? Thank you.
Can we talk more like we did on the roof? Looking back on it like we needed some proof. It happened, we were locked out in the cold, passing creatures with a knife in my hold. I'm starting to think
Thank you guys so much. Whew. This is so much fun. I absolutely love house shows so much. I love them so much, more than like any televised performance or like open arena thing. House shows are my absolute favorite. I love them so much. I just did 2 backyard concerts in Arizona and Utah and was able to raise enough money to purchase an entirely new set of gear for my band. We're gonna do lights and, you know, choreographed like lights and sound stuff. I've hired a few artists to help me work on visuals for a projector behind me, so we're really taking it to the next level. We're gonna tour the West Coast soon. House shows have like a really special place in my heart because they helped that happen. I don't know if you guys know, but artists don't make very much money, like little to nothing. So audience members like that and people who go to house shows make a bigger difference than they could ever know. So the fact that you guys are here tonight supporting artists and people who are doing what they love, that's, pat yourselves on the back, like you guys are awesome. So anyways, tangent. This next track is called Danny Dreams, and I wrote this about my roommate that I really hated. I hated her so much. Our rats hate each other. We both had pet rats at the time, and they would always like fight and like have little like rat arguments, I guess. You know, if your rats hate each other, it's probably not a good deal, right? You guys can all relate to that. Yeah, if your rats hate each other, it's like the old saying, you know. But this song was written about my angel of a roommate who was the other girl that lived with us, and she really helped me not be such a bee and not want to just like rip this other girl's head off. You guys are really just getting to know like a lot of ugly personality traits that I have. I'm selfish, I'm violent, I'm a singer. But this song is written about my roommate Danny. She's just a 70s disco queen. So I hope you guys feel her essence through this song. This is called Danny Dreams of Disco.
some space. I'm left here standing with a feeling I can't place. What happened to the talk we had the other week? The air feels thin in here, but maybe it's just me. Don't let me down again, please. You say my name and I freeze. I can't go thinking like this, pretend it doesn't exist. Don't let me down again, please. You say my name and I freeze. I can't go thinking like this, pretend it doesn't exist. Don't speak of justice, be without it. Don't speak of mercy if you're shouting. Don't speak of justice, be without it. Don't speak of mercy if you're shouting. Danny dreams of disco, yeah, yeah, yeah. Danny dreams of disco. You see me smiling in that shirt I know you hate. No words are spoken, babe, it's barely 8:30. What happened to the talk we had the other week? And just in time you turned around to see me leave. Don't let me down again, please. You say my name and I freeze. I can't go thinking like this. Don't let me down again, please. You say my name and I freeze. I can't go thinking like this, pretend it doesn't exist. Don't speak of justice, be without it. Don't speak of mercy if you're shouting. Don't speak of justice, be without it. Don't speak of mercy if you're shouting. So it goes.
guys so much. I have 2 more songs left for you guys tonight, and then we all get to go eat some churros. This next one is the reprise to Pull, and then after that, it's just one more track. I'm saving my favorite track on the album for last. I can't wait to sing this one for you guys after Pull. So Pull is the reprise to Push. It's the lows. It's the maybe I should have been a nurse. Nothing against nurses, but it's just way different from music. Maybe I should have stayed in college. Maybe I should have taken more sports classes or something. Pull is all the ridiculous things that just kind of worm their way inside of any artist's head, or really anyone who's doing what they love as their profession. Sometimes it feels too good to be true, and it's easy enough to convince yourself that maybe it is too good to be true. So this is Pull. This is all about the doubts.
So you can, but you won't. So you can, but you won't. So you can, but you won't. But you won't. So you can, but you won't. So you can.
Short and sweet, that one. It's one of my favorites on the album. It just feels like it's a hymn to me. It's just a really reverent part of my existence that I don't let myself go to very often. So when I perform it, I feel that, and I hope you did too. This next song is my last song for tonight. It's the last song on my album, and it's called Ampersand. I wrote Ampersand all at once. It just kind of came to me, verse, chorus, melody, everything. I don't know where it came from. I'm trying to make it happen again because it was great. It saved me a lot of time and stress. But Ampersand just kind of fell into my lap. I was experiencing probably like the most stressful and low and scary night of my entire life. I had made a lot of bad decisions that led to one moment, and this song just kind of came to me and gave me a reason to just keep it up and keep trusting in myself as a musician and as a woman, and as someone who takes risks. I don't know why, but this song messes me up every single time. I'm not just a drama queen. This song really does. It teaches me so much about myself every single time I perform it. I hope you guys feel that in this song. This is called Ampersand. I hope you enjoy.
Earlier that night, the room was filled with smoke and lights and lights and lights. I remember asking you to stay as I started to choke. That night, that night, that night. But you put up a fight, and you were right, and you were right, were right.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night tonight.
Bring in amazing folks and talents to be able to share their message and their voice. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you for attending, but especially to those that contribute to making this happen, from the presenters to our beautiful singer this evening. I also want to thank our team members, the men and women on the team that made this happen. We're going to do a quick break. We've got desserts. Scott has put together some amazing churros. Absolutely recommend that you enjoy those. And we'll come back afterwards and hear more from Dr. Steve Young and Heather Wdowin. And I'm really excited to end the evening with them. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you guys in about 15 minutes. Thank you. 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 5 minutes. This is a 5-minute warning. Ladies and gentlemen, let's sit down. I know it's late. Everybody's enjoying the amazing churros. Let's give Heather and Steve Young our time and attention, answer our questions, get some practical application. Let's get going. Well, I guess it would help if Steve Young came up. Also, Belle Jewel has her albums for sale here if you'd like a copy. How much are they, Belle? They're $10. All right, everybody, come on over. And Emily, I think you're the only one that sent your blood in. Come on. Hey, Steve. Steve Young. Steve Young. Steve Young. He's working on Asian time. All right, guys. All right, folks in the back, if you're not getting churros, we should be sitting down like Chip, 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 Chip. Hey, Chip. Yo, yo. I want to know the healing effects of the churros. That's what I want to hear.
I can cite some studies.
Right, they're de-stressors.
I just ate my stress away. My default answer is God hates you. No, they have a really slow system. You may not get it for like a day. Yeah. If I ran that company, it'd be different. We could do like a pre-post churros test of scanning of antioxidants. Yes. Dance off. Happening now. Oh yeah. What? We got the Running Man going. I bow. I concede. I'll take the L. Chip. Dance champion. Totally missed it. Or maybe we have it on video, I'm not sure. The sprinkler! Nice. So I have nothing to say during this round. I gave all of my good material. I have nothing left. Exactly. How do you compete against churros? When in doubt, eat churros.
So Steve, if you use the term cheat day, what's your favorite cheat food?
Actually, this is a great question. And maybe once we get the attention of the slackers back there, I could answer this question because I feel like it's...
And if you say churros, you get free sponsorship.
Churros. No. So, yeah, I can answer that. Have you guys seen the movie Arrival? I feel like it's the most underrated movie, not from an entertainment value perspective, from a like life aha perspective, right? Because basically, like, our language dictates our reality. We can have superpowers with our language, right? And so, cheat days, I personally just don't use that language just because what happens when you eat a cheat meal after it? Like, what's the emotion afterwards? Right. And so from doing this long enough, energetically, it's like I can see the guilt meter, right? Like you go on some nutrition program and you're told like you can't eat this, or maybe you have a cheat meal, and every time you eat the thing that you're not supposed to eat or a cheat meal, like this guilt meter builds up. And eventually, once it overflows, that's when you go, fuck it, and I'm just going to eat whatever. And then once you fall off the wagon, and your weight goes or whatever your health goes, then the pain of that is high enough, then you get back on the program. This is like the yo-yo process, right? And so, right. And so even the word diet, let's talk about language, a diet is a tool, like a wrench. If you tighten a bolt with a wrench, you would be really weird to carry the wrench for the rest of your life. Right, so just being very cognizant of the language that we use. So I personally don't even use the C word, both of them, and and even the D word. So just I don't. Yeah. Sweet. Anyone else? So I would like to. I think the best use of this time really is to leverage Dr. Heather's super brain, like. She's the real doctor. And so we have actual pathology. Oh, yeah. AI. Yep. So any pathology, any specific questions, like this is a great time to do. I mean, I envision this as like I've been in masterminds, like we could do like a health hot seat. It'd be awesome if like someone had a health issue and if you're willing to share all your deepest, darkest emotional secrets, you can come up to the hot seat and then, and sit in front of Heather and she'll help you figure out your stuff. I was just joking, yeah. So any kind of health things, I feel like, in so many like different group events and masterminds I belong to, like just listening to someone else work through what, in this case would be business, but you get to learn so much. I feel like there's such value in being the observer sometimes. And so we just need a few brave souls to come up and share all of your deepest, darkest health secrets. So there's no, I will grab you a chair. I'm going to be the host. I'm going to be like Dr. Oz, but Asian. So much better. Yeah. Oh, yes, for sure. So, what's your name?
Wow, my name is Michael Drew. Why, thank you for asking.
Sorry. All right. So, Michael, why don't we share with the world? Because I'm assuming we're broadcasting this live to the world, right? So, yeah. Yes. So we're going to share with the world your, health issues. It doesn't matter if it's ED.
Wow, that's not a problem I got.
Awesome. So just for the record, there's no ED problems. So I'm going to give you the mic and feel free to share any things.
Well, I think the big one that I mentioned earlier, which was I suffer from sleep apnea, and I actually, when I was 18 and 19, was 165 pounds and still suffered from sleep apnea. So I'm just curious. Certainly I've got a CPAP, but what other things can I do to be able to more naturally and organically improve my sleeping?
So when you have sleep apnea, what's happening is that your airway is being obstructed one way or another, right? So often it's because we carry weight on the neck, and so as we lay down, it can push down. That can be a problem. If you have a small jaw or a broad jaw, your tongue can go back, and so sometimes you can solve it just by getting a mouth guard that'll pull your jaw ahead, which a lot of functional dentists will do. They'll do a sleep study because the CPAP actually causes stress on the body because it's forcing air into your lungs, and so it's kind of a stressful situation, even though you're more oxygenated, plus people are claustrophobic, it doesn't fit well, you wake up a lot. So my husband snores like a bear. I wear earplugs for it. And we ran the LCAT on him. He was religious about not doing it, and his snoring got probably 85% better. He also lost 20 pounds of water weight. Steve talked about how he, lost like 6, and he didn't have a whole lot to really lose, but it just came off. I have women whose their feet actually get smaller and they need smaller shoes because their inflammation goes down so much. And so that's what I would do. I would check to see what's just raising those inflammatory levels that are swelling up the tissue that's obscuring it. That would be first. There's other things that we can do to help, like deepen sleep, that can help get you into the better, more regenerative places, but getting you off the CPAP would be really helpful for that, and a lot of it can be significantly improved by the inflammatory piece.
Got it. It is hard to wear the CPAP. I don't
Yeah.
like doing it because it's pretty harsh. So, but you said it's the LCAT.
The LCAT. And so what it does is it's a functional test, which is really neat because it'll take your blood out, they'll grow your white blood cells, and then expose it directly to different foods and watch how much the cells freak out. And so that's why it's so much cooler. And there's like immunoglobulin tests, which are good too, and they'll pick up some other things, but I love this one because it's functional. And histamine, what does histamine do? It swells up tissues. And so if we can lower that, then a lot of pain can go down, a lot of swelling, like weight loss, etc. So that would be the first step that I would do.
What would be the next two things? Assume, because when I was younger, I was substantively thinner. So let's assume that we get the inflammation down.
So you
and I
could
still
still
have
have
that.
the inflammatory piece,
Right.
though. Even
Got it.
though, I mean, it can be a sinus, issue. Your eustachian tubes can be inflamed, and even though and that's why I think it's so much more inflammatory than anything weight related. Because if you were, thin like that, then
Then it would've-
it's not pushing obstructive that wise. It's going to be internal. Okay. So that's the first thing that I would do.
Got it. I can do that. The LCAT.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
That wasn't so bad.
and just to be clear, no ED.
No idea.
Okay. So
No, not a
So yeah, and a lot of times people think, again, I kind of touched upon it before. People think like the solution has to be this like massive revamp, and usually it could be just simple things
Right.
applied,
Right.
all the
Not
time.
any things that I'm responding to creating an inflammation. Got it.
I mean, I see, like, I think LCAT is something that I recommend for just about everybody because it's what we do every day, what we put in our bodies every day, and we don't even know if we're having a reaction to it, usually because we're not focused that much on what's happening. And so I've seen people's tinnitus resolve, pain, like, that's been plaguing them for years in their hands that they can't even garden anymore, gone, it's amazing. And so that's usually my first step because you're just making different, what?
No, I was just saying, bless you.
You're making different choices every day so that you're not just making it harder on your body. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be sensitive to it forever, because then we do a healing gut protocol, reset the system, and it can help in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I know for me, garlic is not nearly as, when I got that test 9 years ago, if I would eat garlic, I would be inflamed. You can just tell, like, my eyes would be swollen for like 3 to 4 days. Now it's like half a day.
Right.
Yep. Any?
You can do a lot.
Yeah.
So the last one I did was 237, and it looked at like adzuki beans and things that, like chicken livers, stuff that are rare. So you can do like vegetarian panels. I usually recommend about 200 foods because if you come back flagged that you're like, well, I eat all that stuff and now I can't, what do I eat? That it's nice to have a range, but then we can also look at, like, even though you shouldn't be eating them, we can look at food colorings, food preservatives. We can look at functional, like, herbs. And so some people are actually sensitive to, like, curcumin or licorice. And so, isn't that crazy? And so you're like, well, yeah, you should take this because it's so good for you, but actually your body's recognizing it as something that's not. So there's a lot of different panels that can be run, but I usually run at least the 200.
Yeah, we had someone that was severely sensitive to ginger, which is like an anti-inflammatory.
Right.
But for this person, it was a pro-inflammatory. Yep. I know when I had it tested, I had the 50 male herbs, 50 female herbs, since I consume a lot of herbs, and so I had to make sure I tested all those herbs.
Mm-hmm.
So
We prefer CBD.
I never inhaled. So.
Yes. Usually, it depends. Usually it's like 7 to 10 business days. Often it'll come back a little bit earlier, but so there's a rotational diet no, not in this one, not necessarily, because it's not immunoglobulin mediated. And so what happens is we usually you'll have like a green light list. And then you'll be like, I can eat these, but I shouldn't eat them every day until my gut is better, because what's going to happen is when you have these holes in your gut, undigested proteins can get into your bloodstream. You then attack them because that's what the immune system is developed to do. And so this can help with autoimmunity. It can help with pain. It can brain fog, like all kinds of stuff. And so by healing up the gut and making that more of a intense barrier, you're a lot less likely to have inflammation down the road. So it's a big piece, but there's other pieces that have to go with it. And then if you rotate, then you're much less likely to have negative effects from it.
Awesome. Would anyone else like to come up?
Thanks.
Spencer. Welcome.
Hi.
Have a seat.
Hi, I'm Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
I'm out of jokes, so you're just going to go.
That's cool. I want to talk about gout.
Okay.
I have known I've had gout for about 15 years and felt the symptoms for about 5 years before that, not understanding what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I get acute flares in my knees and in my elbows, and those are by far the worst, the knees for sure.
Mm-hmm. What about your feet?
Ankles, yes.
Not the big toe?
No.
Huh.
That's how it started. A little bit of irritation on the top of
Right.
the foot. But I don't know if I just ignore that now because the other
Hurts.
attacks are a whole different level.
Okay.
This has redefined my perception of pain.
Right.
Repeatedly.
So have they done uric acid levels?
Yes, and I have shown elevated uric acid levels when I've had an acute attack. I can test my pH, and I see my pH is low, sometimes 4.5.
Mm-hmm. Have you done dietary changes for it?
Yes, definitely try not to eat fish, shellfish, especially organ meat, and then to a lesser extent, cut down red meats. Chicken is my go-to if I really need some meat.
Mm-hmm. What about sugars?
Beer and
what happens with
alcohol
beer?
both
Does it make it
seem to be
worse?
triggers. Sugar
Yeah.
seems to be a major trigger as well.
Okay.
And it's very complicated because all foods have the purines in them.
Right.
And it's hard to tell which foods really are the bad and which ones are not. There's a lot of conflicting advice. There's a lot of misinformation.
Right. So I think it comes down to there's a lot of general advice, right? As far as you shouldn't eat shellfish, you shouldn't eat meat, you should stay away from refined carbohydrates, watch your alcohol levels, you can't metabolize purines as well for whatever reason. But you could be sensitive to chicken, which is raising your inflammatory levels and causing that all the crystallization to be, even more inflammatory. Other hints that I get are that you may have a gut dysbiosis because have you had antibiotics recently?
No, I have tried not to take them recently, but over my lifetime, I've definitely taken
A few?
more than I should have.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
a dozen cycles at least over the last 20 years.
Okay. And so what that does is that completely changes the culture and the population of your flora in your gut. And so if you haven't been actively repopulating it, then it can lead to a fungal overgrowth that can cause other inflammatory pieces in the body, especially triggered by sugar and alcohol. Does that make sense?
An internal fungal growth?
Yes. Yep. And so it's called Candida.
This is getting a little too detailed for all you guys watching here.
Well, next we do the poop
We're
test.
not live streaming anymore, are we?
Well, and so you can see it sometimes you can see it especially in people that have nail fungus or even rashes or I had a client recently that actually had thrush as an adult, and so he had the white in his mouth because we have opportunistic organisms, and if you think about it, if you have good, okay, and ugly bacteria, right? So you've got if you look at renters, you've got dual income, no kids, no pets. Those are the ones we want. They pay their rent on time. We're good, right? And then you've got the ones that are they got some pets, and they got kids. They're probably making a mess. And then you have the ones that don't pay their rent on time. They lose their job, and then they're squatting eventually, right? And so
how do I evict the deadbeats without getting rid of the other ones?
Right. So that the thing is at that point, if we do. I always think that the ALCAT's a great way to go first because everything is inflammatory. And if you can take that inflammation and just take it off at the knees significantly, you may not even have these flares as much and just enjoy. That's what happened with me was my pain levels just got so much better from that. from that piece in my leg. So nothing really changed, right? As far as like fixing ligaments or having restructural stuff done, it's just not flaring. So I would do that first and see that on that test, actually, there's a place where it'll look at your immune response to Candida. And so if that flags, then we know that it's a good idea to do the digestive analysis. And then from that digestive analysis, they'll do a culture and sensitivity that'll tell me exactly how to kill them and then how to repopulate them. Does that make sense?
Sounds like I need to come see you.
Yeah, I think that's good. So it's a pretty simple way, like we do everything telemedicine-wise, and so you can just get in contact. I can send you the labs. You can do the labs at home. I have concierge blood draw services that'll do the blood draw and mail it out, and then when we get the results, we can meet on Skype or Zoom and go over it and then be like, this is the plan. And then if that doesn't significantly improve, or you'll be like, wow, I feel a lot better, but you know what, I recognize that now I want to sleep better. Then we can, go from there.
I have long believed that just inflammation in general is a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And so to hear you guys talk tonight about inflammation,
It's the
you're
root
speaking my
cause of
language.
everything, right? I mean, it's everything. That's why we age. It's why we become ill. I mean, there's good parts about it, obviously, but when it's rampant and it's chronic and it's systemic, that's where everything comes from. So stop it now.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing is, if you look at I remember when I was in med school, the pathology book was this massive 800-page book. But the cool thing is the root cause of that was the main 5 things.
Right.
Right, and so it's almost like the way I see it is, it's I always tell patients there's a dam that's cracked, leaking water out, and there's 16 towns being flooded, and everyone's trying to clean up the towns. If you just plug the dam, everything's fine.
Right. And figuring out how to make it personalized. So what's really spiking your inability? And the other cool thing that we can look at, because how long has this been going on? You said?
Yeah, 15 years.
15 years?
That I was diagnosed.
Okay, so then 20. We have a fantastically awesome test that we run based on your genetics. And so we can look at specific things that you should eat that make your genetics stronger and turn on the good ones and decrease the likelihood of the bad ones to be expressed, which is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I read through them oh, okay, so I see that's why, I'm a bit of a stress case. Okay, I see why I get more ligament injuries from here. Okay, that's interesting. And so it's so neat to be you know what, maybe you just need to eat a little bit of, whatever to help your purine metabolism. Or what nutrient do we need to give you because you have a gene that's slowing down your purine metabolism or making it out of balance. Does that make sense? It does. So we want to find out what specifically down to your genome can be tweaked for, optimization for the rest of your life.
This is information I want.
Yes, all right. Well, good.
I have one follow-up question
Yes.
about anti-inflammatories.
Yes.
I do rely on Aleve.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly I take it to try to reduce the swelling.
Sure.
Hearing you talk about how it can make the gut leak, I wonder if that is actually contributing to the problem.
It might be a vicious cycle, yeah.
You have
Because
poop in your lungs.
Not today. It does not. It's so difficult to tell what even helps.
Right.
Because it is a delayed reaction,
Right.
and it can last for days or even
Yep.
weeks.
Yep.
I've been having an acute attack in my elbow for the last 3.5 weeks,
Right.
and I'm just back to normal almost.
Yeah.
It still hurts a little bit, but I have full function again. If I take a leave, it seems to take the edge off, maybe, but I might just be imagining that.
Yeah. So
Would you recommend that I stop taking a leave to try to?
I want you to be able to move, and I want you to not to have that constant pressure of pain on you that just can erode our happiness and make everything harder. What I would ideally like to do is have you do more fish oils and curcumin or turmeric. And then if you do have breakthrough inflammation where you're oh, it's just so bad today, I don't even know, then maybe resort to something else. But there's so many herbal and nutritional ways of managing inflammation that actually treat the cause that are even more effective, and the only side effects are making you feel better and having every tissue in your body stronger and healthier. It's a better plan.
News on CBD
Yeah, I was going to say CBD
that
is an
too.
amazing
Yep.
option.
CBD is an amazing option.
So thanks to Marcelo, I've been taking CBD every
How is
day for
it?
the last 2 months,
Uh-huh.
and I think it has helped with my anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say if it's helped with my inflammation because in this last 2 months,
Right.
the last 2 months is the worst attack I've ever had in my
Right.
elbow.
And so it's like the CBD is still at some point going to be helping those 16 towns, right? We want to stop the dam. So CBD is awesome. It's better. I mean, have you tried the topical right on it?
Never have, no.
I would.
Right on the acute flare.
Well, I don't know. You might even be able to use that oil, probably. I mean, as far as rather than. So yeah, put it right
Seems
on the
like
flare.
I'm wasting it.
You're absorbing it. Don't worry.
All right.
Yeah. So I would definitely do that, and then like the turmeric and fish oils. When I worked with NFL linemen, pain management was a huge piece of it, and I would tell them, just I want you to take fish oil until the pain goes away, right? And so they're like 350 pounds, right? And so some of them are like, well, I took 12. That's what did it. I was like, well, good. And that's like pushing just one pathway, and we were working on other stuff as well, but as far as like pain management, it can be really, really helpful. Plus, it's making everything better.
So what am I looking for there? The omega 369? And
omega-3s.
Do I get the same thing from flaxseed oil?
No.
No. Even though it has
No.
some omega 369 in it?
So in
there's
order
more?
to get like the amount of EPA DHA in like one soft capsule average, you'd have to drink a quart or more of fish oil to be able to convert it well enough, if you're a good converter. Would you agree with that ratio? At least.
So would taking one pill still helps though?
Flax?
Oh, you're saying...
Oh, the fish oil, definitely.
The fish oil is...
But you'd have to like drink a
more
quart of
potent.
flax, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Because you have to convert it.
And you could do high dose fish oil. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally just discovered this whole new chemical pathway of chronic inflammation that they didn't discover until like 2012 that the fish oil helps address. And you want to do like a higher dose for a
Yeah.
short period of time. Couple things. So Aleve doubles a person's risk for heart attacks. And so I have a weird question. So what do you do, like professionally?
Sedentary desk job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has there been any change in profession, like work stuff at all? In the last like couple months?
You mean stress-wise?
Nope, not just stress-wise, like the tasks that you do.
Different assignments.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's always changing, yeah.
Yeah. I just asked because elbow pain does correlate with not emotionally being super connected with what you're doing professionally. So,
I'm not.
and I will end it on that mic drop.
Steve's our medical medium.
The side of health I didn't
You're
talk about,
welcome.
but yeah, there's a lot of sense that. So
Thank you, Doctor.
yeah. Talk about that off camera. So
Yeah.
this is a little bit deeper and more specific than general emotional stress. So yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for a vegetarian or vegan fish oil?
You can do algal oil.
What is it?
It's algal oil. The fish actually take, and there's something else. There's a new plant that they're finding has a better, I can't remember the name of it.
Algae from New Zealand?
So if you get algae, so Nordic Naturals actually has a really good one because what the fish oil is concentrated from algae. And so if you need to skip the fish, then that's the best way to go.
Okay. Nordic Naturals, you said?
Well, if you don't want to eat the animal, nothing with a face.
Sorry.
Algae don't have face.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that's what I would do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What's your difficulty?
I believe you have some of my blood work.
Oh, I
Very
do?
results. But not. We sent it over the website thing. Yeah.
The which one? Oh, yes.
So I don't have a full
Yes.
thing.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not sure which would be more of value you think to talk about sugar addiction or like easy numb feet and hands.
Well, it's probably the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll just keep it to. So sugar is like throwing gasoline on a fire of inflammation. And it's one of the more addictive substances that we come into contact with. And it's good for some things as far as like fuel if you're doing a lot of that. But if you have like addiction straight up, then it can be causing, irritable nerves. And like restless leg can be associated with it. And so managing that blood sugar and the ups and downs is really important to do in order to stop that inflammatory process, because it can progress to like neuropathies and like autoimmune neurological things. And so it's kind of like may I touch you? So your circulation is good, but so if you're having like the tingling arms and legs.
Like during yoga, you'll be doing basic poses, and my feet will be uncomfortably numb that I just have to stop. Or like I'll fall asleep with my hands on my chest, and I'm dominant right hand, and I wake up with my right hand kind of seized up, and
okay.
I have to like smack it awake.
Okay. So, have you had any back injuries or like whiplashes or traumas?
Nothing dramatic.
Nothing.
There's definitely chronic mechanical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you guys can do the physiological. I could just see it. So.
Yeah.
You already know that.
So, but the thing is even with like the mechanical stuff as far as posture goes, and because you can have nerve impingement, but if you, like we talked about all of the tissues swelling, so like even sciatica, right, which isn't necessarily appropriate to talk about here, but it's as an example, a lot of sciatica can get triggered not only by like position and sedentariness, or it's the tightness of muscles, right? But it's also an inflammatory process where the tissues are pushing on the nerves. And so if you're sleeping, then you very well may have like inflammatory process in the neck or the back, which is pushing on one of the nerve roots that can radiate down your arm. And so there's an inflammatory piece, but if as we address the inflammatory piece, we have to take that out, but we have to also address the mechanical piece, because otherwise it'll just keep coming back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then also, nerves are very irritable in association with the sugar, but I lost my train of thought. The sugar cravings can be a trigger in the brain. And so you may be trying to self-medicate for certain imbalances in neurotransmitters in the brain. Like we talked about the medicinal effects of churros, right? So
amazing.
They're so amazingly good for you. Like you may actually, having a little bit of sugar before, or if you have food cravings or sugar cravings at night, it can often mean that your serotonin levels are low, and so sugar is one of the things that can push your serotonin pathway and help you sleep deeper. And so that's why people that have a lot of sugar cravings at night, they're actually trying to get their body to sleep better. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that's only one of the examples. I mean, sugar can also affect the dopamine pathway and other pathways as far as trying to make the brain feel a little bit better, and the brain and the nerves are made up of very similar tissues, and so that might be part of it as well.
I have a question. So do you ever get the tingling numbness during the day? Like in your feet? Or only
unless I'm doing yoga.
Only doing yoga.
Right.
Are there specific poses in yoga that definitely bring it on?
Any poses that I have to hold for a long time,
Okay.
or if my feet, like if we're against the wall doing poses, then my feet are up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Or just more strain on the feet.
Got it. How about like any forward bending poses? Are they typically okay or not okay?
There's some tingliness, but
Mhm.
it's not as bad as some of the other ones.
Got it. Yeah. So for sure, there's a nerve inflammation tension going on, and just because you're not 50. So most likely it's a disc issue because you're just too young for it to be the other stuff, which is like severe arthritis and all those things. But yeah, so we can definitely talk about some mechanical stuff that you can do to essentially help take mechanical pressure off the nerve. Simple movements I can show you. And then some stuff to just get your right shoulder blade to sit a little bit more evenly, which then helps take some of the pressure off. So, yep.
That makes a lot of sense because whenever I do get massages, they always say that my alignment of my shoulder
One's
is
not
totally
not the same as the other, yeah.
That's interesting.
And so a lot of that is just gonna, is your work time usually in front of a computer?
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of mouse work or not a lot of mouse work? Like
A lot of mouse, but also with a tablet, so a little more ergonomic.
Yeah, so definitely analyze your workstation setup. And so all the things, even like the stretches I'll show you in restoring the shoulder blade. So that's a great example of, it would seem like I'm talking about treating the root cause, but really the root cause is how's your workstation set up, right? And so literally just moving the mouse closer or even getting a more ergonomic, like a trackball instead of a mouse, or it could be a keyboard with a trackpad. So your arm never has to reach forward. Just you have like, I reach forward shoulder blade. And so if you can just kind of minimize that and get your shoulder blade back in order, it'll resolve mechanically a lot of the symptoms. Sure. Yep. Yep.
But I mean, using the pen tablet is a lot less because it's right here instead of a mouse where you're moving in a bad position.
Yep. So every inch that you can minimize a reach with the arm, if you can just literally like an inch can make a world of a difference. And so just kind of minimizing anything forward with your right arm will make a big difference. So, but I mean, because you sit with really good posture.
Might be because I'm on camera.
So the trick is always be on camera. So just being aware of mechanical like self can make a big difference. But I can give you more specific like off camera.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then if that doesn't significantly improve it, because it's probably in your hips as well with the feet, right?
I have been having a sciatic flare-up in the last few days, for sure. And that's probably because I also sit with my legs crossed a lot of the time.
Yes. And so it's interesting, though, because you are so young, right? Like we can address the mechanics, but as we move forward and as, you get older and like the tissues just aren't as resilient, especially with like hormonal changes and other stuff going on, it's really important to figure out like what, not only mechanically, but what are your triggers as far as how do we make your tissues as strong as possible so you can age as gracefully as possible.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's the secret for everything, right? Yeah. I hit 40 and I was like, oh, I better start really paying attention to this and being, like on top of it because, it does make a big difference. Every little bit helps. Yeah, get a little stem cells in my face. It's good. So, yeah, it works. I'm 85. Right? Isn't that great? I mean, that's the power of stem cells. Where's Dan? Yeah, so then the other thing, too, is like, especially we can see hormonal changes and hormonal issues. Nerves are very sensitive to things like thyroid. And so making sure that that's dialed in, because every single cell in the whole body needs thyroid. And if that's, out of balance or if you're under a lot of stress, and like, so it's kind of like a perfect storm of whatever happens. But the cool thing is like when you start to see even like little things, right? And not that, it's little, but it's something that it's a warning light, right? So rather than just going to the doctor and be like, oh, you should go on Lyrica, that'll be fixed. Your nerves will be all fine, right? You need to take that information and act on it, because then you're able to just make your body stronger so that everything's going to, be more positive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we'll talk a little bit more in depth privately about the labs. Yes, that'll be good.
You want to go, bro?
Do it. Do it now.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
Hi. I swear I've been listening in the back all night.
I know. I saw you working very hard.
So
it was fantastic.
Hey, thanks. I hope you enjoyed it.
I really did.
Good, good. So I look much younger than I am, but I have the body of like an 85-year-old. Like,
Pain-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm in constant pain from my back all the way from my brain. I mean, we talked a little bit about I have Arnold-Chiari malformation, and then I haven't been tested for POTS or EDS, but my family has the genetic forms of it running in all of my siblings, and I just haven't wanted to pay the money for the genetic testing.
Right.
Because
then
what you do with it anyways.
Right.
There's nothing to do with it. Yeah. So, and I'm also vegetarian for spiritual reasons, so I don't eat any meat, fish, or eggs. And I find myself eating a lot of carbs and cheese and sugar at night, and just constant pain. I had a failed back surgery, and it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
So, like, what do you do about it?
So,
eat right? I guess.
Well, the thing is you're eating, philosophically, right?
Right.
Which is a really important thing, because it's not stressing you out not to eat philosophically, but we have to make sure that the things that you are eating aren't, disrupting your microbiome. So that's a big thing as far as like the pain, like tissue integrity, inflammation, microbiome is huge. So looking at how do we help, we actually have a test that we can run that'll look at the genetics of the bacteria in your gut and then be able to tell you what to eat.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. I mean, there's so much more testing out there than like you even know. And then the genetic aspect, because of the tendency for your ligaments to be more lax and elastic, like all of that collagen, deficiency, there's collagen in every single piece of your body, right? So right now it's coming out as like joint pain, back pain, but as you age, if you're not able to protect that collagen from damage through inflammation, then it's going to be, harder down the road.
Yeah.
And I feel you, because like my body feels way older than 85,
like,
right?
Like
I look at
like
my real age.
Right.
Yeah, right. And so, which is great, but like the inflammatory piece, finding out what foods are possibly triggering it. Cheese is one of the most inflammatory things you could possibly eat.
But
so
it's so good.
It's so good. So I was when I was pregnant, I did not give up cheese. I'm like, French women don't give up cheese. I'm not giving up cheese, right? And so
I've never wanted to be French more.
Right, right. And so, but I found that it can have certain effects if I pay attention. And so we want you to be getting protein, right? We want to make sure that we can dial in specific things as far as like how you eat, like what are your needs, like what nutrients do you specifically need for your tissue integrity and strength. We have a fantastic holistic nutritionist that we work with that will design programs to tell you like what, like based on this testing that we do. So we do the nutrition genome, we do the Viome, and then we do an ALCAT, and then she'll build you recipes as far as like this is what you, as a vegetarian, this is what's going to make your body the strongest. And then there's other things that we do that like vitamin C is hugely important, like proline is hugely, zinc, selenium, micronutrients. And if you're not supplementing, you need to.
Which I'm really bad at.
Yeah, and it's right, I know, it's hard. And
I ate a lot of nutritional yeast because it makes me feel like
right,
right,
exactly. And so like the supplementation, because the food, like our food system has degraded so significantly, we're not getting what we need from food. You need to eat 8 oranges today to get what the vitamin C you got from an orange 30 years ago, right? Like, it's nuts how degraded our food system is. That's crazy, right? And, right.
That's insane.
It's insane. And so you can't physically eat everything that you need for the nutritional levels that we really need as far as like antioxidant status. And so that's why, we do compounding for intravenous therapies, which can be hugely important, especially if you have gut absorption issues. But then dialing down specifically what supplements you can do. We can package them so it's easy. You don't have to think about it. You just take it with you, open it up at lunch and eat it, right?
I appreciate not thinking more
yes.
than I have to.
right. There's just so much. You've only got so much bandwidth, really. Like you only have so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
And like I actually like Dr. Oz. I like you more, but just because he's an advocate.
It's because you're
he's educating. But you can't take all the supplements that sound good. You just can't. And so that's why we want to help. You probably are mineral deficient.
Yeah.
the B vitamins, you're doing the nutritional yeast, but you might have a B vitamin deficiency as well. And so we can test for that too. And it's nice to take stepwise, like we can run the whole gamut and be like, bang, like that's all of the information that you are going to need like for a long time. We can build whole programs, but we can also take it stepwise. Like, let's get you on a good dietary program first, see what happens with your inflammation. And then from there, you're like, oh my God, it's so much better, but I still... Right, and so then we take the next step.
Do allergies change?
Yes.
Because when I was younger, I was allergic to, like in high school, all meat except for pork, all dairy except for goat's milk, and like potatoes, corn, wheat, all berries, all citrus fruits. Like there was basically nothing else that I could eat except for pork, which was sad. So I'm hoping that that changes.
Yeah, and so I mean it's like that shows. I mean, it very well may be because like if your gut integrity is anything like your ligament integrity, right, then that means that you need more support there.
Right.
And so you're more likely to develop those allergies. Did you have eczema or?
No, I never did.
Oh, that's good. Asthma? Frequent infections?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of antibiotics?
Yeah. I mean, I've been basically dying since I was born.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Welcome to humanism.
Right. I got spinal meningitis when I was really little, and that made me really sick. And so every time something comes around, like I'm constantly just fighting the next thing.
Right.
And
so we need to
struck by lightning when I was a little kid. Like,
were you really?
Yeah, I really was. So like I've just been like trying not to die my whole life. I'm ready to give up. But
No. We got a good another 110 years, right? At least, right? Like,
woohoo!
Well, we want to make them good ones.
Yeah.
Because I was bedridden for a period of time with my leg injury, and I remember just feeling like I was encased and imprisoned in my body, right? And I was like, this is all I have. Like, I can't, like, this is not sustainable. What am I going to do? And so the more that we can figure out, like, how do we boost your immune system? There's tons of herbs that we can use to do that so that you don't get everything that goes, through town, because that's just like taking down your vital force. So we're born with, however much resilience, right? And then as we age, it goes down and down and down. And then when we start to like hit equal, that's when we start to really see symptoms. And so some of us, get struck by lightning, and that takes a big, chunk out of our resilience, right?
Just a little.
Do you play the lottery?
No, I should.
You probably should.
I've decided I'm probably going to die from like a cold.
Oh.
Like, of all the things that should have killed me up until now, it'll be like a cold that just takes me out. But.
Well, hopefully when you're in the hundreds, right? So that's like, we need to figure out, like, how do we make your tissues stronger? And we can, because if you give the body what it needs, there's ways to kind of like jump genetic defects or like slow genes. And that's the coolest part about doing that stuff, right? So have you heard about the methylfolate? Have you heard about that? Like the MTHFR, right? Like, it's awesome. So that's just one out of like 150, right? And so if you have this slow gene, then you can't take the folate that you eat and turn it into the active form as well. And so you can have inflammation, you can have brain stuff, right? It's so cool, because so you can solve a lot of infertility just with that, because the folic acid is actually being used. And so if we can figure out where those jumps need to be made, or like really push the pathways biochemically, it's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so where should I start? Mechanically, I can just send you like 2 videos of some like stretches. It mechanically will help. How do you feel? I know I like asking weird questions. So how do you feel, Brooke, when you're in a room with a lot of people?
Extremely uncomfortable.
I
love all of you. It's nothing about you.
Yeah, so I can always sense like closet feelers, and you're definitely a closet feeler, meaning you're like naturally more empathic than other people. And so a lot of times, naturally more empathic people are not coached on how do you let other people's energy flow through you. And what ends up happening is you start to potentially absorb other people's energy, and like your brain, your nervous system doesn't know like what to do with all of that.
Right. So when I was in college, I was diagnosed with Asperger's, and I don't know if that would play into that at all, because I get constantly like overwhelmed by everyone's feelings, and so I shut down instead of processing.
Yeah, so my tip is if you, One, I will say, even though we need, from a medical perspective, from the medical industrial complex, we need to assign neat containers and labels on humans, because that allows insurance companies to financially then bill, and then we can then attach another label of a drug to all that stuff.
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of unlabeling.
I like that.
If there's one takeaway from today, other than Asians are awesome, it is to unlabel. If you just unlabel everything, life is pretty amazing. And so I can tell you're an amazing supporter. Just like most givers are not as practiced at receiving, most supporters are not as practiced at being supported. And what does collagen in your body? And it's the support structure. And so if we take away the label of physical, emotional, mental, and all that stuff, you can start to see there's just one pattern. And some of that, my guide tip, whatever if you want to take it, is if you embrace this state of love,
Mhm.
it's the best to allow other energies to pass through you.
That's hard.
It's, do you play rugby?
I've always wanted to.
So if the first time you play rugby, it's going to be hard as shit. But 10 years later, you'd be like, I got this.
Right.
So I tell my daughters all the time, anything that's hard just means less practice. And so if you just put into practice, and anything that's hard becomes easy. And so my universal message to all humans is, in mass media language, like Hollywood language, love is portrayed as something we give and get, some type of currency.
Currency, yeah.
And really, love, we are love. It's not something you ever have to earn or give or get. It's in if quantum mechanics, if we get super scientific, all particles of all universes are actually related to you. And so in religious words, they would say God is in you, right? And so literally you are the essence of love. And when you connect to that, all this chaotic energy that your nervous system that you sense, I can tell you sense it, goes away. And my other tip would be hug lots of people every day. It's a great way to...
Especially Asians, right?
Yeah,
My niece is
especially
Asian.
Asians.
So.
But for sure, if you just said, if I could give you an actionable, 30-second hugs twice a day to a human, you will feel amazing.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
And I'd get some rose essential oil.
Yeah.
Because it's tridoshic. It'll balance all those Ayurvedic doshas. Plus, it helps
Cool.
open up the heart and love.
Right. All right. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know who to give this to.
Anyone?
Sure.
Bueller?
Is this on? Okay. Hi.
Hi.
So, I don't know. I've got all sorts of things. But 2 questions. So I do have MTHFR.
Yes.
I actually did have fertility issues and several miscarriages and things. Yes. But regardless of that, I have my babies now. How do I balance out getting rid of toxins? Because I don't from what I understand, I don't process toxins the same way.
Quite as well. I mean, if you take the 5-MT, the supplement, then it can help phenomenally.
And
right?
I have a sublingual one that I take.
Good.
So is that the best thing I can do? Is there anything else that could help?
Oh, well, we definitely, we have a whole detoxification program that we have people go through. We change the way that they eat. We decrease the exposure to toxicity. We upregulate how the liver and the kidneys and the skin and everything can get the toxicity out. And so, I mean, it's one of the first steps that we actually do because it makes everything else better.
Yeah.
Right? And so we often will run the ALCAT with that program so that you can see, this is what I should eat, this is what I shouldn't eat, this is how I'm going to regulate my gut, I'm going to support my microbiome, I'm just going to clean out my body because all of these toxins that are inside, they can change the genetics for the negative, and they can change hormone levels.
Yeah, I found I get depression frequently and things like that, which makes it hard to be eating
Did
correctly
did
and
the 5-MTH
exercising
help with
and
that?
it does help.
So there might be another piece,
Yeah.
right? So it's usually not like we all wish it was, but it's usually not like a magic magic bullet, like fixed, yes, right? Unless you're 20, right? And then it's a little bit easier. But I think that with that detoxification process, and then figuring out like how do we balance your brain a little bit better, because the MTHFR deficiency, or like the slow SNPs, can make it more irritable. But there's other things that we can do, alongside that help that supplement work better, that balance it better. Yeah. And so that detoxification is pretty awesome, and I think that everybody should do it at least once a year, just because we're exposed to so much you wouldn't even believe it. Like, that's a whole other. It'll
be
nuts.
profound for you. Just
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Profound. Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's related or not, but since I was little, totally separate. If I run or even walk quickly outside, if it's the least bit cool, my legs itch to the point of pain. Like, it's weird, and I try to get running.
Do you get eczema from it? Like, do you see the bumps, or they just itch?
No, it's really itchy. And just my legs. It's just odd.
Has that been consistent your whole life? Were there any periods where that symptom wasn't there?
No, it's been pretty consistent since I can remember. But it's kind of an odd, maybe.
Well, so, I mean, itching is usually like histamine, and so then, which is inflammatory. But like, I have a vibration plate at home, and so running is going to open up and like cause a histamine response. It's like sometimes when you use one of those back rubbers, or like a vibration plate, like when I'm on my vibe plate, my whole, like, it's totally itchy. It's crazy. And I don't like those massagers either because of the same thing. And so for some reason, when you're running, you're probably just like, there's some tissue that needs to be stronger so that there isn't a histamine response. So it's giving an indication of like just needing some more tissue integrity. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think I kind of touched on it when I first talked. Like, one way to approach these cases is we could like test the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Or we could just like do the basic stuff, like
Right.
the most likely things, and if they're not resolving it, then we can go deeper. So yeah. But my gut feeling tells me the toxic stuff would be huge.
Oh, huge. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I'm gonna sneak back there and give someone a hug.
Oh, good. Are you? Anyone else? And we can always talk like off camera too. Like if you guys have personal questions and you don't want to necessarily be on camera, like that's, woo.
So, I guess it's less about problems and more about increasing health.
Right.
So I did
I
go
love
through.
it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, I did go through a period of my life where I had all kinds of diseases, but I started working out and eating right, and it got rid of.
Isn't that
almost
amazing?
everything. Yeah. Right. but I'm now training for the Olympics, and so I'm wondering what
Really?
advice you would give for muscle gain and staying.
Okay.
And,
What
and
sport?
really for recovery too, I guess.
What sport?
I throw discus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So exercise physiology is so incredibly awesome, and I've worked with a lot of professional athletes to help with their muscle gains, like because you can't do illegal substances,
right?
And so there's natural things that can be done that are NSF certified, so they're not going to have any of that bad stuff in it. We're like, oops, I ate a steak in Mexico, and all of a sudden I, peed dirty on testosterone. Must have been that steak in Mexico,
Right,
Which
right.
has happened.
Yeah, right, uh-huh.
Right. But we can help optimize everything. And so as far as like professional athletes, like that's been so much fun because they are motivated. They want to know like what nutrients do I need? Like how can I sleep better so that I can have my repair?
Recovery,
Like
yeah.
Steve made one of the first like sports supplements. Like he was 10 years ahead of your time, probably 15. the huge, right? And so, no, he made some of the first like sports, like preload and reload, like recovery and like workout powders, totally based on research. So we've been doing like athletics for a long time, and it's so nice to do it because it's really preventative and it's really optimization.
Yeah.
And so, like sleep, how much are you eating? Like, what are
Right.
your hormone levels? Like
Right.
thyroid, everything. You know, what's the inflammatory piece? Like, are you overtraining? How do we balance like muscle gains versus protecting you from overtraining? What are your nutritional, you know, omegas in your
Right.
body? Like, how's your cardiovascular system?
Right.
So we do a lot of that.
Well, shall I answer all of those? Or? I know, right?
Yes.
So I do want to say that the technology that we have now to track is your training intensity and volume, if it's on track, is amazing. Like through HRV, through resting heart rate, like just the Aura Ring for I think it's like $300. You could detect overtraining way before it shows up sort of
Right,
on
in, like,
paper
labs.
in
Really?
labs. Oh yeah, I can geek out with you on recovery.
What does an Aura
all
Ring
that
measure
stuff.
then?
It's like your sleep and your heart rate variability.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk. Oh, yeah. So and also for sports performance supplementation. Yeah. So we technically developed the first like pre-post workout on the market ever.
Ever.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah. And
No
so
big.
and then recently I made a supplement just because it doesn't exist. So I had to make it. That could also be helpful in your recovery rate. So
Yep.
we can
Yeah,
talk about that.
recovery may be the biggest thing for
Sure.
me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's the bottleneck, right?
Uh-huh.
I can train all day long. I enjoy training, but
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can definitely just, even without any testing, send you like, if you want a piecemeal, like we don't make the sports supplements anymore, but I can just give you the formula. You can just go, piecemeal it together. It is incredible. I mean, I used to get emails all the time, like I'm training twice as hard and doubled my volume and I'm still recovering.
Yep.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that we can do just to also decrease the likelihood of you getting injured.
Right, right. That would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not necessarily the most ergonomic movement ever.
No, it really is not. I'm not sure the human body is meant to
Not
really
really.
do that. Yeah, which is okay.
Right.
but-
Yeah.
And
That's
quite
fantastic.
and it's not really the prettiest movement ever either. So.
Well, there's a very famous sculpture. I would disagree.
Pretty
Well,
to
the
me.
sculpture is pretty, yes, but the movement itself is just awkward.
So pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I can give you. We can definitely give you specifics as far as. I feel like I want to be like, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Right? That's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's no longer my passion anymore, the performance aspect of this, but I know a little bit about it. So,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Anyone else?
I think we've virtually exhausted the audience.
Great.
Any final words from you, Heather, or from Steve?
Asians are awesome.
Well, that just goes
It's a
without
joke that
saying.
keeps on working. This is the beauty of it. That it keeps on giving.
Yep. So we can either connect, like I have some cards with me, which is easy. Otherwise, like I think that we were tagged through the event. And so you can contact us that way. Email is honestly better for me because I kind of do a Facebook detox, and so it's harder. And I know that you were sending me some messages, and then I was like, gone. So I'm sorry. So email's always best for me personally, but and I can certainly get that to you.
You know me, so that's what's up.
And you can always find me through Steve.
I guess final thoughts. I would say actionables, like just some of the basic stuff that I mentioned for the 5 root causes of inflammation. And, granted, like serious, Steve. So even though, I try to make it somewhat entertaining because sometimes health can be like, what I don't want it to come across, like the tone in a lot of these seminars, whatever info things, like you should be doing this, right? Like it's the vibe is like you're doing something wrong and this is the right way. I definitely want to just say that it's just accepting where you are now. It is there. Everything is there for a reason, And so whatever pain that you're having, it is a message from the universe or God, whichever camp you're in, trying to give you a lesson or a value of. And I feel like the path of letting things go, you could push it, you could fight it, but I'm a huge fan of like hugging it and then letting it go. So that would be my general, overall, higher level advice. So.
And I think that, you know, when we want to look at all of the different pieces, and we talked about a lot of eclectic stuff, right? And so it's like, yeah, rose oil, and, you know, get more hugs, and, you know, all of that. And like, you can do a lot of testing, and we can do like the preventative piece, and we can really get down to the biochemistry of it, and the physiology, and the pathology, and the heart. Like, Steve and I do a lot of hard science research-based stuff. But then there's this piece. Yeah, we're totally, I think we really enjoy each other because we're so nerdy. But, like, have you read that study? Wasn't it amazing? Right? Like, yeah. And so, yeah, then there's this piece where we want to hit the emotional piece, and we want to hit, like, the wellness piece. How are you moving, and how are you sleeping, and how are your relationships? And, you know, like, because you can't be separated from all of that stuff. You can't. And all of that has an effect on your genes. It's proven. It's proven. And so you can't, like, we can do all the hardcore stuff, or we can start, you know, light, and it's just wherever you want to choose your own adventure. But, you know, I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you
I'll
very
give you a
much.
hug.
Oh, right.
I like hugs.
Even though you're not Asian.
No, I'm better. I'm a Drew, so there we go. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming out. Really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We'll do these more often as friends come in, and y'all have a safe night and a safe trip home. We'll see you, hopefully, most of you on Wednesday. Thanks, guys.